Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me are Dr. Anahy Fonseca and Jussara Korngold. Hi, everyone. If this is the first time you're watching this podcast-like program, please note that our program, Psychology and Spirituality, is a program with weekly talks and based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. We're here to offer a conversation, but also a safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens. Today, Dr. Anahy Fonseca and Jussara Korngold will discuss some topics around meaning and the search for meaning, right? But before we start our conversation, I'd like to recognize the organizations that are sponsoring this program: Mansão do Caminho, United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and Mansão do Caminho, and I'm in Brazil. I'm sorry if I repeated myself here. But I ask you that please make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you'd like to check out other channels or more information, please do so by reaching www.spiritist.us. If you have any questions, if you have any feedback and comments, please write them in our chat, and we'd love to hear from you. In any case, I'm here to say hello again and really interested in talking about issues from that perspective of what we need, right? What do we need to achieve perhaps a sense of well-being that can be maybe balance, peace, love, a sense of fulfillment, a sense of self. And as I go through that, I wanted to open our conversation by reading a paragraph from Joanna de Angelis' book that I'd love for all of you to have access to. But in any case, Joanna de Angelis writes the following: the individual possesses, even if unconsciously, the germs of the ethical sense of earthly existence. Spark of the divine psyche, that is, it carries within the depths of the self this embryo that develops in direct proportion to the predominance of knowledge and emotion over primal instincts, making room for reason, discernment, and evolution. As its march is ascensional, each step taken signifies a new experience that incorporates into it, enabling it to face new challenges. My question to both of you: how do we lose ourselves in this existential and ethical sense? Anahy, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here among friends again. And wow, we are always amazed with Joanna's ways of putting so beautifully, bringing to us all this knowledge. So let's connect to what you said, Marcia. We are sparks of the divine psyche. That's so beautiful. So we know that we belong to the divine psyche, right? And look what it said that the germ of the ethical sense of earthly existence. So I was among some colleagues some days ago in a discussion, and other fellow psychiatrists were wondering from where this evil malignance comes from, from where does it come? That makes us go to wars and to feel apart from each other, all this competition, things like that. And Joanna is saying that the germ of the ethical sense of earthly existence. So we have all, this germ of the ethical sense. and this spark of divine psyche within us.
Yeah.
But she urges us that, and she says that we carry within the depths of the self, remembering that self, capital S, Jung's concept of the self, but that Joanna expands the Jung's concept to say that the self is our spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our immortal spirit, our spiritual experiences during our evolutionary process. So, of course, there is an embryo that needs to grow, right? In this beautiful sentence that Joanna talks about. And she says that it is in the development is in direct proportion to the predominance of knowledge and emotion over primal instincts,
Mm-hmm.
making room for reason, discernment, and evolution. Because sometimes I hear people saying, okay, so if we are sparkles of the divine psyche, we come from this divine source that we all call God, or the
Mm-hmm.
transcendent one, creative source of the universe, however people want to. Okay, so we have uh, inside of us already this knowledge, but Joanna urges us to pay attention that it's in embryo form, and that we
Mm-hmm.
cannot bypass the process of evolution, because sometimes it worries me a little bit, hearing a lot of people either wondering from where all this evil and competitiveness and all these values that makes us feel apart from each other come from. But at the same time, other people saying it's like, an imbalance nowadays, a paradox. It's a paradox that some people are saying, okay, we are part of the divine consciousness, so
Mm-hmm.
we already have the divine consciousness. Let's just manifest it. It's beautiful. It will be sometime, but Joanna is urging us to pay attention that there is an evolutionary process, okay?
Yes.
And then we have to overcome first, step by step, primal instincts to make room for reason, discernment, and go on in the process of evolution. And that our march is ascensional, step by step, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it came to my mind, Marcia, when you were reading one of Jung's quotes, let's say, when he says that there is no birth of consciousness without pain, without
Uh-huh.
some pain. Okay, we are not going to, at least in one incarnation, to illuminate ourselves. Now, okay, now I'm ready and I can, just, we would like that, but we
No
know that,
flipping the switch, right? We cannot just say, let's turn it on now.
yes, exactly. So, and I would love to hear Jussara's thought about. And I just wanted to remember when I was listening, reading again, Joanna, because we have to read many, many times so that we can integrate all of the knowledge that she's bringing to us.
Mm-hmm.
But also about this process that is, let's say, some pain is inevitable, right? So I was thinking that now, and what Joanna says in this beautiful book is that whenever the individual, for instance, when we are not focused in our development, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what happens many times is that we are going to try to develop our what we call our personas,
Yes.
our the part of the ego that try desperately to adapt to the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very important because so the ego is totally focused on adaptation to the
Yes.
outside world.
Mm-hmm.
So what Joanna is saying that we should pay a lot of attention, because if to this process, if I'm just worried with adaptation to the outside world, I will comply to a lot of other people's thoughts, vision of the world, and competition and all this. It will be firsthand in my worries, right? And what she says that then we forget this process of what she calls self-confrontation. In other books, she urges us to, it's more or less the same self-analysis, for instance, so the process of self-discovery.
Yeah.
So if we look only to the outside, then we kind of get lost to look in our inside, on our inner self, right? And then we can become, she says, what happens, the person doesn't do the self confrontation.
Yes.
Okay, I want to adapt, I want to the people like me, love me, in preference of everything else. But sometimes I will have to say, no, I don't want that. No, I don't agree with that. Okay, if other thinks this and that, but for me, if I'm doing this process of self-confrontation, I will feel in my heart what brings me inner peace, what brings me, what makes this connection with my inner world, what makes my heart, feel joy, feel
Hmm.
beauty in things, and makes it stronger to face challenges. She says it's very, very important for us in this process of evolution to face challenges because
Hmm.
we go step by step. And what she says, Marcia and Jussara, and I would love to hear your, about that, is that when a person is so focused on the outside world, then if the person gets like a victim of some failure,
Yeah.
either being economic, social, emotional, or even existential, organic, sorry, in nature, then the person, as you asked us, will lose this existential ethical sense,
Can I just wrap it up because I'm
Please,
thinking this is really good stuff. I want to hear from you, Jusada. But what I heard, and this is my words, of course, is Joanna is inviting us to this self to be courageous, to embark in this self-discovery journey, and that self-discovery requires courage. It's not just right. I can do it, and you just start. It takes a lot of courage because, of course, there are many issues that I think maybe we can talk later about escape mechanism or how we hide from ourselves. Why? Why? Root cause being perhaps in our egoic construct to adapt to the demands of the outside world, we spend, as everybody should, time or energy developing this persona, right? That is successful. And success only from a egoic uh, perspective is material. It's success in the maybe bio and social sphere. So I am organic, I'm a human being, so I need to meet successful by being physically well, by being healthy, etc. And the social aspect is all my interrelationships, which unfortunately perfect storm, right? We are looking at the world from a material lens only, biosocial lens. And in the West, mostly, we are in a place where we are mostly driven by competition, not collaboration, competition, and fueled by capitalism in this quest to acquire things. Therefore, we not only identify ourselves with the persona, we identify ourselves with the things that acquire and even our relationship with a given identification. And I'm talking about I'm a mother, I need X, I'm a professional, I need Y, etc., etc. So from all of this, regardless of good or bad, there's this element, which is no matter how successful you are, all of us will fail, right? All of us will fail. And now we are falling into the notion of an existential and ethical lack of meaning, if you will, because we have not spent or invested energy in becoming spiritual and psychologically mature. Does this make sense? Did I get what you said and Joanna said? And if so, Jussara, what are your thoughts on that? How did we lose this? What can we do to get back on track?
So, first of all, hi everyone. How great to be here again, to have you all following, our podcast. And like Anahy said, every time we dive into the works of Joanna de Angelis, it requires from us a lot of thinking, pondering, and exchanging of ideas. And I think it's very much what we do here, not only from a spiritual perspective, but also due to having
Yeah.
the opportunity of having Dr. Anahy Fonseca with us. We can go into the scientific approach as well, like a psychiatrist that she is, and also with the expertise of Marcia. So it is so great. And for us, poor mortals, sometimes we have to try to decodify what
Yeah.
she's saying. And in this book that we are talking about today, that is the Awakening of the Spirit, that is part of the collection of the psychological series that was psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco. In this part, this first paragraph, when she talks about us being the spark of the divine psyche, I was thinking about that famous painting that we have in the Sistine Chapel, done by Michelangelo. I think most of us are familiar with this painting when Michelangelo portrays the birth of life, meaning God, what would be the representation of God, the finger of God, the tip of the finger of God, touching the tip of the finger of the human, and
Mhm.
with that bringing life. So this is what we call here the spark. Spiritualists normally refer to that with using a word that is called monad. Monad mean the only cell. And it's so amazing that when she's talking about the embryo, well, we know embryo as not being just one cell, right? But it still means at the moment it's formed, and all the possibilities of development it contains.
Mhm.
So from that point on, I don't know if the word fail it's something that would use. Perhaps I would use, more like we are, you know
Yeah.
uh, because because it is not a failure when we supposedly fail.
Yeah.
It's experience. It's because we are trying. It's because we are doing something, and we learn from this trials and fails. But I think it's not very much in the sense that when we use this word I failed, it means that and I don't see it like that. I see it like, I am a being full of possibilities,
Yes.
and according to my choices, the way I'm going to be directing my life, I may get it right or not. But if I do not get it right, I always have the opportunity of going on because it is my destiny. And
Mhm.
I think it's very important as well, the way that she says that, at least in the first stages, that we are, as this development of this divine spark, right? The potentiality that we have, she talks about us developing more personality than individuality. Going further than just thinking about this terminology in terms of, in medical terms, in terms of the psychotherapy, what to me would mean, developing more personality than individuality. It means that I'm more worried with, like Anahy said, with the material things
Mm-hmm.
that will fulfill my five senses and all the needs that I have, than necessarily think about me as this monad, individuality, divine sparkle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when we think about that, and the way she says here, that on the first stage, and it's great that you said, Anahy, we still have so much ahead of us, without a doubt. Um, we have walked a long way already, but there is so much. We cannot think about ourselves, not even in the middle
Mm-hmm. Of
of
the journey. Yeah.
we are just
Uh-huh.
beginning this journey. So, of course, we are still much more, in this personality phase, very much like the child that needs to touch everything, to put it in the mouth. They have to feel, they have to use the five senses. And the way that she explains here is very simple. I mean, she's saying the more we go towards the light, make really this spark shiny, uh,
Mm-hmm.
shine, and make this individuality grow, the more I distance myself from the personality, the ego, the shadow that it represents, something that encases me in a way that it's like we live in an illusion. We think that this is the only thing that exists. So this is the little world that I know of, and somehow I have to manage here. That's why the conflict, when I have things, I go by the standards, everything is good, but when for whatever reason we don't feel that much adjusted to what the world requires, we go into very difficult psychological processes and, of course, spiritual process.
Yeah. What can we do, Anayi? What are your thoughts?
Well, listening to you guys, and in this, when Joanna talks about exactly what Jussara said, developing more personality than individuality, maybe for everyone to make it easier to understand, it reminds me of that great movie with Jim
Uh-huh.
Carrey and Morgan Freeman, Bruce Almighty.
Oh, yeah. So for those that don't know, right? Bruce Almighty was a movie that came out, 2 decades ago, uh, a little bit more than 2 decades ago, and it's about of right the idea of the divine in a comedy sense. I love it. I love that you bringing that up. But how does it talk to you? How does this plot about a man that wants to complains, right? Complains about how life is not going as it should, and then God allows him to be God for 1 week, and of course that's the plot of the movie. Tell us about it, Anahi. How
Yeah.
does it help us understand this spark, the divine spark in us?
Okay. Well, I will give 20 years spoilers.
Yes.
I think it's okay for people. But because Bruce, so if people remember and who hasn't seen the movie should go and try to watch it again or for the first time, because it's exactly what Joanna says. The character Bruce, okay, the main character, he wanted to be, I think, TV anchor or something. He wanted to be the guy in his TV show and whatever. And so he was trying, really hard, and he thought he would be he would be in a short while because he was okay with his boss and this and that. And then this other guy is promoted to anchor, and then he gets really mad because he was doing exactly what Joanna told us we shouldn't do, is to focus only on the persona. As Marcia
Uh-huh.
said, okay, we have to adapt to this world, but we have to have this balance between inner world and urges uh, and needs, and the outer world, and this need that we all have to adaptation. And so what happens is that Bruce gets really mad with God.
And
That's
we all do
great.
as well, right? At some time.
Yes. And why is this happening? Like Jussara said, like young children,
Yes.
spiritually speaking. And then, well, God appears to him like the wonderful Morgan Freeman, and then challenges him. Okay, if you say you could do better, then do better. Try to do better. You're going to be God like for 1 week or something like that. And then, if you remember, he gets mad at some point with the listening to all the prayers for coming through all parts of, and then he tries so that the prayers just put notes, and then a lot of notes and fill all
So,
his
so he's
apartment.
streamlining the process, the connection with God, right?
Yeah, so then he decided, okay, let's put all in the computer. So he just goes without sleeping because the computer starts running like crazy. And in the morning, he's half asleep with all the prayers. And then he says, am I going to read all of this, to answer one by one? Then he just puts yes to all. Remember that? Yes to all. Then the world goes crazy. And I think this position, the way that he was seeing the world and its problems and people's problems was through his own experience. Like a child, like Jussara said, I want everything. How come
Mhm.
God doesn't give me everything? And it's kind of a narcissistic
Yes,
position
yes,
of the
yeah.
ego. So I understand when Jonah says developing more personality than individuality, then not listening to this need, or not paying attention actually to this need of self-analysis, self-confrontation, to see, for instance, if it's, I think it's my inner child that is desiring this and that, because
Uh-huh.
I have to be, as an adult, to be able to face, frustration, and to wait for things to happen, and to pay attention to others' needs, not only mine. So he was like, exactly as you said, like a child. I want everything. How come I'm not anchor anymore? So when he tries to play God, the world goes mad because he's looking to the world with the lens, his own lens of his suffering,
Mhm.
and the need to pay attention to his inner world. Or is this desire okay? If my colleague is better than I, why should I have, the job? It's better than my colleague because he's better than I. So we
Mhm.
have also to think of the collective and all our human beings, our fellows,
Yeah.
human beings. So what happens is that if people, he makes a mess, and there's a beautiful he screams, and then he has a message, if I recall, to meet God at some point. And then God is there, the wonderful Morgan Freeman is sweeping the floor, I think, cleaning the floor, and gives him also, okay, let's sweep the floor together, let's clean the floor together. and this wonderful dialogue that in the end said, if you want a miracle, be the miracle, be yourself, because the miracle is not giving everything to anyone. What you did with the soup, that he did like Moses in this with his soup. He made a way of just, divide the ocean in his soup. He said that was like childish. God tells him
Yes, yes.
what it's really that was not a miracle. When God says a miracle, it's a single mother waking up and having 2 3 jobs to put food in for her children. A
Mhm.
miracle is when a teenager says no to drugs and
Yes.
goes on studying. So a miracle is exactly what Joanna tells us, to face our challenges. How so beautifully Jussara said, to go further, and as you said, Marcia, to be courageous. Remember that core, the
Mhm.
prefix is in Latin is heart in Latin, and courageous is to act with the heart, with the wisdom of the heart. So be courageous in facing the challenges. And then when they clean the floor together, and that God tells him, if you want a miracle, then be the miracle. And then he said, well, the good thing is that when we make a mess, that is exactly what Jussara was saying, when we fail, we can always clean up afterwards. I think that's so great, because it's exactly how do we learn? We learn through our mistakes also. It's not when I do great in some challenge, but sometimes when I fail, I will learn faster if I'm humble and I recognize, well, maybe I should have done this and that, or what a senior or an elder told me. So when
Mhm.
we are, humble, when we can face that we made a mistake. So I think that's the individuality. And remembering just what Jung says, the process of individuation
Mhm.
that makes us whole. It's not individualization. It's not to be an individual, a part of others, but to be whole with all the different aspects that forms us during our evolutionary process. So
Mhm.
I think that's what Jonah says. Not so much personality, not so much ego. I want this, and that, like Bruce,
Yes.
and more wholeness, more acceptance of everything that we are, to be truth to ourselves. And then I think we are in the path.
But let's think about it, because I want to go back and push both of you to talk a little bit more on the topic at hand, which is the search, right? The search for existential and ethical meaning. And that search implies that we need to awaken our deep self, right? And that's the process. The awakening is actually the process of achieving the individuation that we all need, right? But can we talk a little bit about, maybe perhaps, are there techniques, are there tips, are there some insights that we can talk here about the process to make it easier for us to really look into this emptiness that I carry, right? This existential emptiness that I carry, and look for ways to attain or address or be courageous enough to look into that.
Well, I will ask Jussara, maybe we can divide, because Joanna, exactly, she talks about two
Mhm.
techniques, let's say.
Oh, awesome.
And I
Mhm.
think one maybe I can talk, and then the other maybe Jussara, because it fell pretty well in both our experiences, right, Jussara? Because she talks about psychotherapeutic techniques in this
Mhm.
chapter. for this loss of existential ethical sense, when we lose ourselves from this sparkle of the
Mm-hmm.
divine effect, that is when we get stuck in the personality, and we kind of lose ourselves of our individuality. And one of them, that it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much what we do in psychotherapy, for instance, she talks about a biographical study. I think it's very important of of ourselves, of our individual, even writing a diary, she says,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can revisit the journey in order to identify the origins of our conflicts and complexes.
So it's not
And
that difficult, right? It's we do psychotherapy, but you can also start journaling on what is going on. What are my source of conflicts? Why do I feel the way I do?
yes, exactly, because in psychotherapy we talk about what since Freud we call like talking cure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a lot of spiritist centers and spiritualists, or even in churches and temples with the spiritual leaders, whenever a person, or even among friends, but if we are connected to this focus on myself, on
Mm-hmm.
trying to think about my journey, but when I talk to someone with this in mind, okay, there will be a process of cure, more or less intense, depending on the situation. Because when I'm talking about my process, trying to find where does this conflict, this bad feeling, this depression or anxiety comes from, and which behaviors can I trace back in my life, or situations where I felt the same that I'm feeling now, even if with the different people. We
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of this kind of thinking together in a psychotherapeutic setting. And Joanna tells urges us that we can do by ourselves, for instance, writing a diary, she says. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like we did when we were children. I don't know if
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
kids are doing it, but we have sometimes with a key, right?
Yeah.
Uh, we write one day, and we would say, "Oh, this I did this and that." So it's so beautiful, this creativeness of children and this truth, being true to themselves. That I can talk to myself and say, "Today I did this and that, and I felt this and that." So when the child, the teenager, and any one of us actually is doing that, we are connecting to our journey, and we are kind of analyzing ourselves. That's exactly what Joanna urges us to do. This self confrontation. Oh, I felt this so bad because my friend said this and that. But, my mom, my sister had said something similar in another situation, and I felt the same. So, what's inside of me that responds to this kind of situation? Wow, then I'm not in other people's hands. I'm in my own hands.
No
And
longer
I'm,
victimized, right? And I no longer
yes,
becoming a peon of external events, but how do we control our emotional response to whatever is out there? Hmm.
exactly. And just to finalize, Joanna says our complexes being like subpersonalities
Yeah.
within our personal unconscious, that she says we must integrate them. So we must accept, recognize their existence and accept them. Like, for instance, our inner child that we have
Hmm.
talked about sometimes. So to be healthier and to have healthier behaviors towards ourselves and other people. But Joanna also talks about another technique that I'll ask Jussara to talk about. That's so
Jussara, yeah, Jussara, tell us, can you enlighten us on additional tips on how to become more in touch with ourselves and less empty, perhaps.
Yeah, what I find it so amazing is how we see the clarity, the vision of this benefactor that is Joanna de Angelis, because at no point whatsoever she refuses or indicates to us, overlook how much the professionals can help us.
Hmm.
So she mentions how important it is for us in doing this assessment of, I know, I'm not good. I may, if I use those therapeutic techniques, for instance, of, trying to look behind things that could have contributed for my state of being today. If I start, sometimes it's not the big things that make a difference, but it's the
Hmm.
small things. And I think it's so wise of her to say, take note of the little things that are happening to you, and put it in a diary on a day-to-day basis, because then they may add and may impact us much more than trauma that you have. I don't know. I'm talking as a no professional here. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But sometimes, because they are more recent, and it's so many things happening.
Or the trigger, right? They may be exactly the trigger for something else. Yeah.
Right, and the sum up of everything, and sometimes that we are not paying attention, because I know that I went through that was major during my childhood. But if we're going to look at everything else, we will recognize that maybe the weight of what is happening now, the little things, are even more than just one trauma that we had. And so she says that it is essential for us to look for therapeutics as resource, always having in mind that in this process of this sparkling, right, this monage to become the big bang, right, let's
Yeah.
say
Love it.
we
Love
are
it.
the big
Uh-huh.
bang, right? I mean, the universe has no end, and
Uh-huh.
our universe has no end. So I'm just that first bang, that this is spark. uh, this is our destiny. This is our path. And very much like, I think we all know people that perhaps came to you at one instance and said, oh, I helped that person so much and I didn't even receive a thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to help anyone anymore. This is what you get. And I sometimes, of course, I don't say anything, but it's like, I mean, this is so. Are you looking for an excuse to yourself for not doing anything? Because you're not convincing me with that this is
Mhm.
reason enough for you not to continue. And this is what she says: the pursuit of self realization cannot be interrupted by the last happy episodes that are part of life, are part of growing, you know. And then she gives another clue for us, right? Besides, making a journey to your past, writing in your journal, also remember that serving others is an excellent technique for you not just to be in your egotistical phase, and
Mm.
thinking about yourself and your own problems. Look around and make yourself useful. And this is going to be fulfilling. So I think it's incredible, all the way she puts all of this together.
She does. And all of this, as Jussara said, it's in a small book. Always say small because they're tiny, right? They're tiny, not so much consumable or digestible without pondering, without reading and rereading, perhaps. But here today, we've really talked about all of those things that are inherited in us, that that divine spark that is all in us in whatever shape or form, but it's all in us, and that we have beautiful opportunities to serve, to pray, to look for ourselves in this self-discovery path, and it's where we can find ourselves in the path of, in addition to developing our personalities, also to in the path of individuation. Individuation, as Carl Gustav Jung mentioned, that goal of accepting all there is as part of us. But with that, I just want to say we are at time. Time flies when we're here talking. And of course, we want to thank Joanna de Angelis for the amazing framework for us to talk today about existential and ethical search for all of us. With that, I'd say see you next time. Thank you so much, Jussara. Thank you so much, Anahy.
I just want to say something.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Since we talked about God Almighty today,
Yeah,
the movie,
yeah.
there is one phrase that is attributed to Oscar Wilde that
Mhm.
says the following: when God wants to punish you, it answers your prayer.
This is a direct quote to or direct reference to one of the moments that you can just Google on YouTube for Bruce Almighty prayer, right? Where God talks to him and even teaches him. It's a maybe a 3 to 4 minute clip that you can find easily, where he teaches what is to pray deep inside. But you're right, Josada. Throughout the movie, I love that you brought that up. We have God as this, how we interpret God, of course, submitted with millions and millions of prayers. So let us be mindful what we wish for.
Exactly.
Okay. With that, I want to say goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for
Bye
being
bye.
here with us. Bye.